My wife of 22 years looked me in the eyes over morning coffee and asked for a divorce. She thought she was about to take everything, the house, the kids, half my paycheck for life. What she didn't know was that I'd spent the last 18 months recording every single lie she told. By the end of that afternoon, she'd lost her job, her boyfriend, her reputation, and she hadn't even seen the courtroom yet. This is how I destroyed the woman who betrayed me, without raising my voice once. My name is Ray. I'm 47 years old, and 3 years ago my wife Diane looked me in the eyes over morning coffee and told me she wanted a divorce. What she didn't know was that I'd already been recording every single lie she told for the past 18 months. Let me back up. Diane and I were married for 22 years. 2 kids, a house in the suburbs, the whole picture. I worked as a senior project manager at a construction firm, pulling in solid 6 figures. She stayed home with the kids for years, then went back to work part-time at a real estate office when our youngest hit middle school. Life wasn't perfect, but I thought it was real. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday in October. I came home early from a job site because a client canceled, and I saw a silver BMW pulling out of our driveway. Diane's car was in the garage. When I walked in, she was in the kitchen wearing makeup she never wore for me, humming a song I didn't recognize. "Who was that?" I asked casually. "Who was what, honey?" That's when I knew. I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I didn't even hint that I'd seen anything. Instead, I went to my office that night, sat down at my desk, and made a decision that would save my entire life. I was going to document everything. I installed a small dash cam in her car, the kind that activates when the engine turns on. I backed up our joint bank statements to a private cloud she didn't have access to. I started screenshotting our text messages before she could delete them. I kept a notebook in my truck where I wrote down every lie, every inconsistency, every working late that didn't add up. Within 2 months, I had enough evidence to know the truth. The silver BMW belonged to a man named Marcus, her boss at the real estate office. They'd been sleeping together for at least a year. She'd been using our joint savings account to book hotel rooms and pay for dinners I was never invited to. She'd withdrawn almost $40,000 over 18 months and labeled it as groceries and home repairs. But I still didn't say a word. Here's the thing most men get wrong. When you find out your wife is betraying you, your first instinct is to explode, to confront, to demand answers. That's exactly what she would have wanted, because the moment you show your hand, she controls the narrative. She becomes the victim. She gets the sympathy. She gets the lawyer first. So I went the other way. I smiled. I complimented her new haircut. I took her to dinner on our anniversary. I told her I loved her. And every single night, while she slept beside me thinking she was getting away with it, I was building the case that would end her. I hired a private investigator, paid him in cash from a separate account I opened in my name only. Within 3 weeks, he had photographs, hotel receipts, video of her and Marcus checking into a resort in Miami during a weekend. She told me she was visiting her sister in Cleveland. I also quietly hired the best divorce attorney in our county, a woman named Patricia, who had a reputation for being absolutely merciless. I paid her retainer in cash and signed everything under attorney-client privilege. For 6 months, she and I built a case so airtight that when it finally dropped, Diane wouldn't even have time to breathe. Then came that morning. The coffee. The speech. "Ray, I've been thinking. I'm not happy. I want a divorce." She had this rehearsed look on her face, like she'd practiced it in the mirror. She probably had. She started talking about how she deserved happiness, how we'd grown apart, how she hoped we could keep this amicable for the kids. I just nodded, sipped my coffee, said, "Okay, Diane, if that's what you want." She looked surprised. She expected me to beg, to cry, to fight. Instead, I stood up, kissed her on the forehead, and left for work. 3 hours later, she was served at the real estate office. In front of Marcus. In front of every single coworker. The divorce papers included photographic evidence of her affair spanning 14 months, bank records showing the $38,000 she'd stolen from our joint account, a subpoena for Marcus's financial records, since marital assets had been spent on him, a motion for full custody of our 2 children, backed by sworn statements from her own sister, the sister she'd used as an alibi, who I'd quietly contacted 6 months earlier, and who was furious about being dragged into it. Diane's whole world collapsed in a single afternoon. But I wasn't done. In court, her lawyer tried to paint me as the controlling, distant husband who'd driven her into another man's arms. He tried to make the affair sound like a symptom instead of the crime. Patricia let him talk. She let him build his whole narrative. And then, when it was our turn, she did something beautiful. She played the dash cam audio. Diane, sitting in her car, on speakerphone with Marcus, laughing about how Ray's so stupid he thinks I'm at book club. Diane telling Marcus that once the divorce went through, she'd take me for every penny, the house, and full custody, just to watch him suffer. Diane saying, and I quote, "He's such a loser. I can't wait to be done with him." The courtroom went dead silent. The judge, a woman in her 60s with 25 years on the bench, looked at Diane with an expression I will never forget. It wasn't anger. It was disgust. The ruling came down 4 weeks later. I got full primary custody of both children. Diane got supervised visitation only, pending a psychological evaluation. I got the house. I got 70% of our remaining assets because the court ruled she had committed financial misconduct. She was ordered to repay the $38,000 she'd stolen, with interest. Marcus was named in the judgment and had to testify. His wife, who had no idea about the affair, filed for divorce 2 weeks later and took him for everything. Diane lost her job at the real estate office. Marcus was fired. Their entire social circle, most of whom were mutual friends of ours, cut them off completely once the court documents became semi-public. The last time I saw Diane was at our daughter's high school graduation. She sat 6 rows behind me, alone, wearing a cheap dress and looking 10 years older than she had 2 years before. She tried to make eye contact with me. I didn't look back. My kids are thriving now. I'm dating a wonderful woman named Karen, who I met at a parents' meeting. The house is peaceful again. And Diane? Diane learned the most important lesson of her life. Never betray a quiet man who's paying attention.